And I'm Guy, and we're back together again.
Yes.
Let's get into it.
Finally.
Nat's been sick the last few days. If you haven't been tuning in, it's good to have her back. She was off camera on microphone, but she's feeling pretty good today.
Yes, my voice is still funny. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe again. It really does help us out. Also, we try to read most, if not all, of your comments live. Probably all, because we have a smaller crowd today, but lets me read all the comments I want. Also, we pause the whole show for super chats, and those help us out as well a lot. And we have memberships.
Well, your voice is a lot better today. You sounded like a man yesterday.
Thanks.
No problem.
I am a little bit off, though. I'm out of practice.
Oh, no.
Steve Farrell says, hey, people. Hello, and thank you for being here. Justin GP, hello.
Good to see you.
Hi, folks. Been hectic, but glad I can catch Nat and the guy. And thank you so much for being here. And I'd love to know what your opinions are, because, again, we haven't had the treat of having you live.
And again, we're really thankful for everybody that does tune in. I still remember the days when we had like nobody watching. We had one person that would watch and leave comments. Their name was Rafa. And we just kept going. And eventually we got here. So hopefully we can continue to build.
And Valerie de Roussel, hello, says first time catching them live. Hi, says hello from Alberta and thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, and again, if it is your first time watching live, post a comment. We read all the comments, especially on a day like today. It seems like there's going to be less people. Usually Saturday shows are a little bit slower.
Dozda says, hail. Hopefully not rain. Thomas Muse says, good afternoon from Hillbilly Hill, Alberta, Freedom Peoples. Hello, and thank you for being here. I'm guessing it's a nice day out. Because usually when people don't complain about the weather, it means it's nice.
Well, the one guy said hail, so maybe, who knows?
I think it was a different kind of hail. Summerfeed, hello, how are you? Says, hi all, I'm working on my book of poems. There's an Alberta Independence one as well. Lovely.
Oh, Justin GP, thank you.
And thank you, Justin GP, for the $13.99 super chat saying nice to see Nat is feeling better. Yes, but my brain, I don't think is. So we'll see how this goes. We know how the guy likes everything to be very perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't. Should we start?
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Jesse.
Let's get into it. We'll get into Alberta Stay Free. No breaking news today, so.
Yes.
Free home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And my buttons work today, which
Fantastic.
is good.
You just like messing up my show when I'm on.
I like to push your buttons, yes. Let's start with this from Rebel News saying, quote, we filed a legal complaint demanding elections to Alberta investigate Forever Canadian.
Well, this would have been in the breaking news section. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. I did think this was huge news here. And this is what needs to happen because we're complaining and complaining and complaining. And we have not only the right to complain, but we have legal standing. I was waiting for somebody to do something. And Rebel News seems like they're taking up the fight for us, which is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Elections Alberta doesn't require a Forever Canadian to declare our fundraising because we're not campaigning on the referendum question.
Albertans deserve to have confidence in our democratic institutions. That confidence doesn't just come from counting ballots. Honestly, it comes from knowing that everyone plays by the same rules. Because the moment people believe there are two sets of rules, one for one side of a political debate and another for everyone else, well, that confidence begins to just evaporate. Today, we filed a former legal complaint with the election commissioner asking Elections Alberta to investigate the activities of Forever Canadian, a registered referendum third-party advertiser founded by former Alberta Progressive Conservative Cabinet Minister Thomas Lutsko. Now, let's be clear right from the start.
And I will say, we're going to keep playing this, but one thing I'm going to say, it took quite a while for somebody to register a legal complaint, which might be a good thing and work in our advantage because so many people have called and have registered complaints by email and by phone. So I think they will take this seriously, or at least that's what I'm hoping at this point.
This isn't about whether you support Alberta independence or even having a vote on Alberta independence. And this isn't about whether you support Alberta remaining in Canada. Every Albertan has the right to campaign for the side they believe in. God knows I am. Campaign hard, raise money, open offices, buy ads, give out signs, hold rallies, make your case, but follow the law while you do it. That's all we're asking. Elections Alberta must enforce the law. In fact, our complaint prepared by the top guns at Williamson Law, which you can read and help cover the legal costs for at stopthecheaters.com, says exactly that. Look at this. Rebel News has a direct and genuine interest in the equal enforcement of Alberta's election finance laws. It is precisely because Rebel News is held to these rules that it asks your office to apply them on the same terms to the subject. And we acknowledge that this isn't the first complaint regarding the Forever Canadian campaign or Thomas Lukaszuk that's been made. People are desperate out there for a level playing field, but ours is the first formal legal complaint with a 5-page letter, a 10-page legal complaint, and 226 pages of evidence, a full compendium of exhibits that Elections Alberta cannot ignore. And if it is...
Yeah, and this isn't some fly-by-night complaint to say they did it. You can see the work they're putting into there. This is a fully drawn-out complaint. If Elections Alberta does not take this seriously, I don't know what the next steps are, but there better be next steps because there's some serious corruption going on there. Another thing I'll say, we see what's going on in the United States right now with massive amounts of classified documents coming in about election interference in the 2020 election. Canada has a bit of a reputation for having more fair elections for the most part. I mean, the way they try to rig their elections in Canada is through mainstream media and getting voting blocks to move out of the country while they move in mass immigration. But as far as voting day itself, most people are fairly convinced. But when you get something like Elections Alberta so heavy-handed, just ignoring direct evidence, people are going to start to question. So they need to take this seriously.
I have to do a small caveat there because there was a lot of evidence coming out from CSIS itself, which is essentially the Canadian FBI CSI, saying that there was interference in both of the last of Justin Trudeau's elections from foreign interference from China.
Well, in every election,
Russia.
when you do dive into election interference, every single election around the world is going to have some form of election interference. Mm-hmm. This is just a given, but it's very minimized in most countries or a lot of countries. A lot of countries we're seeing mass interference, and we want to keep a certain level of integrity, especially in Alberta. Alberta has better election laws usually than most provinces. We want to kind of keep it that way, and we want to keep the integrity of Elections Alberta here. People are going to lose faith in that organization if they do not fix this problem immediately.
But I'll also say it does reflect pretty poorly on the campaign they're actually trying to run, and it is something that we, the ones that want Alberta's independence, can use to say, hey, these are the tactics that the other side that want to remain in Canada, that are trying to do apparently everything they can for us to remain in Canada, are continuing to use, which is a reflection on how Canada has treated the issue as thus far.
Well, and if he does eventually reveal his financing, do I expect it to be legitimate? No, I think they probably have paperwork ready to go. They didn't want to register as a third-party advertiser. They did late, and then they backdated it, almost like Elections Alberta was helping them out there, but at least they got registered because we complained. Now we continue to complain. They did nothing this time, but Rebel News is taking up legal action, so my hat's off to them.
Yes.
We do have a super chat here, though.
Yes, Faro. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat saying, I think the Alberta Forever Canada petition has to be inflated or fictitious at 400,000. Time to StreamYard to X also.
Yeah, and I don't think the Forever Canada is inflated. I just think they had absolutely no standard to get those signatures. And I think if it was really delved into, people didn't know what they were signing. A lot of people literally said they didn't know what they were signing, and they found out later. They were told it was one thing and found out Forever Canada was something else. People didn't know what Forever Canada even was at that time.
And on the streaming to X, we used to stream to X before, but because our bitrate is a bit higher and YouTube and our UMBLE do allow for that bitrate, X still didn't at the time when we were trying, so our stream would drop all the time. Not that we don't want to stream to X, but for now, this is what's worked for us. And again, we're streaming directly from Mexico, so I'm hoping there's a bit less interference from the higher powers, but who knows? I mean, at one point, I do expect people not being able to see us in Canada.
Well, I will also say Rumble has a lot of problems with their UI. They always had problems, so it's not Rumble trying to censor us on that particular platform, but sometimes on YouTube.
He meant X.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. But now let's move. Oh, do you want to keep watching that video?
No, that's good. It's a pretty long video. I do recommend watching that whole thing because I think that was the best post of the day today, and it was the most important that can have the most impact on Alberta independence.
But next, we have Joshua Ranger saying, quote, it's time for Alberta to leave Confederation and become a nation. Albertans will vote on October 19th, 2026. Thank you, Pastor Mark, for this message.
Well, you've got the province of Quebec, and that is as liberal, progressive, atheistic, as anti-Christ as possible. So Alberta's like, hey, we're surrounded by insane. Yeah. And so that's why they're trying to become their own nation. Not that they're all Christians, it's just that some of them are insane. Well, you've got the province of Quebec, and that
Well,
that
leave
is
it.
as liberal, progressive, atheistic, as anti-Christ as possible.
Okay,
So
and you can leave it
Alberta's-
there. And I don't necessarily agree with the whole statement there. I think the cities in Quebec definitely are exactly as described. But I think in the rural areas, they are highly conservative. And we've had a lot of people from the province of Quebec say it's pretty much conservative. They call themselves liberals. The cities are overly liberalized to that point.
But I mean, we can say almost the same thing for Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, any big city in Canada. And there's a video I've been working on, but I've been sick, so I've yet to film it, but I do have all the information I want to put in, where I do say I invite anybody that lives not in one of the big cities to go to your closest city and spend the whole day walking around. Don't drive. Don't just go pick something up. Don't just go to a concert or a game, but spend the whole day, even going to the neighborhoods they warn you about, they tell you not to go to, and then tell me if that is the same Canada you used to live in 30 years ago. Because I think the cities are very exemplary of the issue and very obvious issues do cook around in the city, but those eventually do also go to the suburbs. It's just that many people have been able to live in this bubble that hasn't been touched yet.
Well,
I do see a lot of the Forever Canadians and the elbows up boomers being that demographic that tries to defend a Canada that doesn't exist for most people that live in it.
Well, I don't think it's even about the cities. The culture of Canada is being completely erased on every single level. The visual representation of that is the cities, but on every single part, Canada is not what it was. It's trying to erase its own history, erase its own culture. It wants to become a nation of nothingness, of immigrants that will import their own culture. And we see that happening right now in Canada. We want to stop that in Alberta. That's why we want Alberta independence.
Well, and we saw Trudeau say it himself. He said, what did he say? We're post-national nation? Post-national, something he said.
We're
What did he say?
post-national nation.
That one,
Yeah.
whatever he said. I don't take him too seriously. It says India offers Canada 60 million immigrants, your second largest country in the world with 40 million.
60 million immigrants, not 6.
I said 60. You need at least about 100 million.
Well, and this is a big problem here. And the fact that they're going on here and reciting this like they're doing Canada a favor and Canada wants, that's because behind the scenes, the mechanisms have been built to bring in 60 million Indians. And the Indian government thinks this is exactly what Canada wants. No, this is what the Canadian elites and Mark Carney wants. He shouldn't be so comfortable saying this on national Canadian news because this is not what Canadians want as a whole, I believe. But I think, especially with the mechanisms that have been made to bring in students, foreign workers, and things like that, starting at the end of 2027 again, really opening up the doors primarily to India.
You have things which we need. We have things which you need. I mean, for example, simple examples. We have, you're a country of, you're the second largest country in the world with a 40 million population, 40 million population. You need at least about 100 million population. You need people to man many of your resources. We have the capacity, we have the intellect, we have the talent, we have the resources. You have things which we need.
Yeah, and it's very interesting what Promethean Action Group has been getting into lately. And they've been talking about a lot of Indians being brought into other countries to take up executive roles to kind of dominate those countries. And they have major connections to the city of London.
But also being able to actually see the issue for what it is. For years and years and years, we got this propaganda. And I used to talk a lot about the lie of overpopulation and the actual fact that we're underpopulated. Now, in most countries in the world, even African countries, the numbers are going down as each year passes. All this lie that we had for years and decades saying, oh, we are too many people, blah, 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 which did lead to a decrease in total population, even for Canada. The fact that we're not incentivizing young Canadians, young people within Canada to actually procreate and have the opportunities and have the capacity to even have a family, which is why I think in Alberta that is still a possibility because those values are still instilled within many people, but also the desire and the drive to be a productive society by yourselves. Instead, we're now importing people under the myth that, a bigger GDP is the only thing we need and the only number that those
Well, here's the thing.
in Ottawa really do care about.
We're not going to be able to improve that birth rate as long as we keep putting a Band-Aid over the actual problem and not trying to solve it. The birth rate keeps going down because we're not forced to address the problem because we keep bringing in mass immigrants. And what these Indians and Chinese and everybody else are being told, there's huge propaganda campaigns saying there's jobs in Canada. We need need you in Canada. You're doing us a favor. No, you're not doing us a favor, but they're only hearing the government propaganda at this point. And how the citizens see it is you're an unwelcome house guest that's eating up all the food, and the rest of Canada is starving because of it.
But we also, even here in Mexico, I continuously see on X, of all places, a lot of ads for, oh, go live in Canada. There's big opportunities in Canada. You could immigrate to Canada and you'll have a way better life. There's people looking for jobs. No, there's job seekers go to Canada, essentially, which is...
Yeah, my X account has the exact same thing. My X account now...
From the government of Canada, sorry.
My X account now seems to think that I'm a Mexican because I live here in Mexico because I've already fled Canada. And it's given me these ads to come back to Canada. I am in no way, shape, or form interested in going back to Canada unless it's for Alberta to help Alberta independence break free.
But lastly, and speaking of, Alberta Radio says, the Chiefs don't speak for us. It's time for change.
An excellent AI video, but I wish they would have done it with a better AI program because the voices were way off on this thing. And it kind of doesn't sell it quite as good. But the animation was good, and the messaging itself at its core was good as well.
They made it with Grok. Oh.
Elder, Canada has failed our people. I agree. Poverty is everywhere. That's why I'm for Alberta independence. Self-governance is our only chance. We must support it. Since before Confederation, Canada has never followed through on its promises to our people. Exactly, and even when courts rule in favor of First Nations, Canada always appeals those decisions. The existing treaties could be grandfathered into a new agreement under an independent Alberta. Yes, that would protect our rights while allowing Alberta to become independent. Elder, Canada has...
You know what I would love to see? Actual First Nations people that have spoken up already doing more speaking up and talking to each other as well about Alberta's independence.
Yeah, but sometimes you just want to get the very precise talking points in a short amount of time. I mean, I'm all for AI. It just, the voices were off, and the voices changed halfway through there as well, which made it a little more off-putting. But it was a fantastic message, and I do want to hear more of it. But we do also need to see First Nations people stepping up. At one point, they really did. Hopefully, there'll be kind of another wave of that, especially as we get closer to October 19th.
Yes, and also explaining it from their perspective and how First Nations already, a lot of people within it, 40-something%, did want to vote for Alberta's independence.
46%.
46%, because they themselves also want independence from the system that continues to work within their own tribes as well. And yes, I see it. Steve Sofaro, thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat saying this is what Grok reports as the cities in the U.S. with the most visible support of Alberta independence: Washington, D.C., Moscow. I guess Moscow, Idaho? Moscow, Idaho, Houston and Texas, and Dallas, Texas, Billings, and Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah, very interesting because Texas has its own independence movement as well. Washington, D.C. is primary. Are you okay?
Well, I was trying to figure out why I read it wrong. It's Washington, D.C., Moscow, Idaho, Houston and Texas, and Dallas in Texas, Billings and Bozeman in Montana. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was trying to say. Sorry, I distract you and then you can't get your point back.
That's all right.
But we'll go back to your comments and then into Alberta politics. Glenn Gunn says, hi all from Calgary. Hello, and thank you for being here. Hold on.
I will say one more thing about Steve Safaru's message there. And it was very interesting Washington, D.C.'s on there because it's like 90% Democrats. Mm-hmm. It is a Democrat stronghold. Now, a lot of Republicans are starting to move to the city because of Donald Trump and this administration. And they're expecting hopefully a bit more of a takeover if a J.D. Vance and a Marco Rubio can get in there. But the fact that there's a lot of online traffic and there's support for Alberta independence there, that really shows something.
Yeah, and I was good. That's why I made a face when I said Washington, D.C. Interesting. Glenn Gunn says, hi, Nan and Guy. Hello. Said, I was gone, but I'm back. Oh, I'm glad you're back.
Fantastic.
Justin GP says, the lower portion of Ontario and Quebec urban areas are mainly liberal. I'm originally from Ottawa. Don't judge me, LOL. I never fit in. Alberta has been home for 17 plus years, never going back.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And there are a lot of conservatives from all over the country. Most of the conservatives, though, that would support Alberta independence have already voted for the independence and left Canada. They have their eyes wide open. We did years ago now at this point. There was nothing like Alberta independence in a prominent role that said there is going to be a vote in short order. Mm-hmm. That being said, there still are a lot of conservatives across national Canada. And when we get to that magic point of a binding referendum, I expect a swell of youth vote because they know it's one vote to change the rest of their life, as well as a lot of conservatives from across Canada moving to Alberta. The situation will be far more dire when the binding referendum comes as well than it is already.
Glenn Gunn says, think for yourself, get off your phone. I agree. And Justin GP says those ads just show that Canada is still flooding us with temporary foreign workers or permanent residents in addition to our porous border issues.
Well, they really tried to tamper down these PRs so they can make this public plea that, oh no, we're taking care of the issue, but their refugee status has gone through the absolute roof. I was shocked when I seen it. Well over 2 million refugees a year with a base population of 40 million in Canada. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's over 500,000 refugees claiming refugee status a quarter here. And in 2027, they've already built the mechanisms to bring low-skilled workers. These are older people that their children already have citizenship in Canada. They will automatically get citizenship, but this is not a working class of people because they're already retired or they're not capable of work.
Yeah, because they did pause that, what was it called? Like the grandparent loophole. They closed it, but it's only closed for a year or two.
Yeah. There's a lot of mechanisms opening up at the end of 2027, especially going into 2028. I think the game plan was just to wait Donald Trump out.
And Kyopo, hello, says, leaving Ontario August 1st, I'm coming home to Alberta. Great.
Fantastic.
Hope your ride or plane ride over there is good. Kyobo says, born and raised in Alberta, made the mistake of moving to Ontario. Word of advice, don't move to Ontario. Ontario is a communist country. Yeah.
Well, and
or Vancouver, I would put it.
And it's only going to get worse. It is absolutely getting hollowed out by these tariffs. They're really honing in on Ontario. And why? Because in reality, they don't want anything. The United States doesn't want anything the East has. It doesn't want that manufacturing. Mm-hmm. The only reason it has that manufacturing is Canada has always leveraged what the West has with natural resources in order to guarantee manufacturing and put tariffs around those industries to create monopolies like the dairy monopoly, like the cell phone monopoly. I mean, you can go on and on about the corruption within Canada. It would be very nice if Alberta could get a deal with the United States straight through without Canada being involved. The only way to really do that is Alberta independence.
Kyopo also says, I'm of South Korean descent. Love the food. Believe me when I say I don't trust the Chinese Communist Party. Ontario's best friend is the CCP and corrupt Indian officials. Very similar to Vancouver. And continues, Indians are in every area of government now, and Canada isn't Canada anymore. The Canada I grew up in is no more. The Canadian government are largely Western, highly woke liberals, and Indians with backing by the Chinese Communist Party. And I mean, it's a strategy we can see in many other countries already implemented and used, including the US, including the UK, including Ireland, including a bunch of other countries within Europe that implement the same strategy where people do, and whole communities and whole minorities, as they like to be called, take over governmental roles and then continue to take over and over until they take over a town or they take over a city. And then everybody you see is not a minority anymore.
Yeah, I was watching a very interesting take on China today and why oil prices didn't hit the highs that people thought. A lot of people think their economy is collapsing from the inside and they're hiding it. They're now refusing to release a lot of data. The podcast I was watching is called Basecamp. If you haven't watched Basecamp, they do very, very interesting subjects, but they do a lot of statistical analysis with it, and that's why I like them. So when they did the analysis of China, which I think is their most recent episode, absolutely fantastic.
And we've also we used to talk a bit more about China, but YouTube doesn't like it that much. But we used to talk and highlight how a lot of the numbers that do come out are either inflated or changed in some way or not fully open and honest. And when people do dive in, or people even within China itself do come up with the real numbers, they're very starkly different from what they're saying to the outside world.
Well, what you're seeing is a 40 to 70% decrease in energy within China, and the majority of that is manufacturing. So.
And Kyopo also says OSAP is now giving away $20,000 to $60,000 for permanent residents to take a two-year diploma mill courses. Each course can be completed with ChatGPT. And we've also, yesterday I mentioned it, but I wasn't on camera, about, for example, when Clyde Do Something was talking about the diploma mills within Vancouver and the connections and how deep-rooted it is within the Indian communities, both back in India, but also within Vancouver, and how it's unfair both for the people that are being sold this dream that is non-existent, and for the people within Canada that have to, number one, pay for a lot of it, but number two, also deal with an increase in a population that they don't have infrastructure or housing for example.
I'm far less concerned with diploma mills. What I am getting concerned with is what the next move is here. I really think they're going to start training Red Seal workers in foreign countries, have them completely certified, ready to go, bring them into the country with a digital ID, because they're saying all tradesmen are going to have digital ID. Why is that the case? Maybe because they want to import high-paying workers and undercut their wage, especially for a lot of these natural resource projects, if he does decide to nationalize the natural resource sector, which seems to be the case right now.
And Kyobo continues, I had an Indian lady call me and tell me all I have to do is attend and use ChatGPT to complete the course, and OSAP will give me $60,000. Attend means show up once and not have your camera on and leave after 15 minutes and watch a recording later. If every permanent resident is getting $20,000 to $60,000 for pretending to educate themselves, what could this do to Ontario and Canada? Which is why yesterday I laughed at a comment. I don't remember what video we were watching, but I laughed at a comment that said, oh, it's a world-class education in Canada. I mean, some places, other places are exactly this now and have turned into this.
But when you have diploma mills, a lot of those people don't make it into the workforce, so at least they're not undercutting the jobs. I really think the next wave is going to be Red Seal workers taking some of the best paying jobs in Canada, and that will absolutely hollow out the middle class and jobs that should be going to Canadians that are, no better way to put it, that are literally born in Canada. These are the jobs I think of the future, because I think college has been a big lie, especially Canadian college, with all the ideology shoved in there. A lot of people that decided to go the route of a tradesman getting a Red Seal job, I think was the right decision for this generation, at least.
And Kyopo finishes, your tax dollars going into someone's pockets who hates us. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the experience that they're having in Europe, that they're warning us about in the UK and many European countries, the US and Canada. I was going to say Canada, but of course Canada. But now let's go into, one more. Valerie Duracell says, Carney just told Canadians that provinces have agreed to introduce digital ID verification for tradespeople. Just told them.
But you have to put these pieces together, and it was the same thing. I was way ahead of the curve when it came to the nationalization of federal resources, because I was looking at the mechanisms he was building. A lot of people just see this on the level of a digital ID. It's far more than that. And why do you want tradesmen to be registered with a digital ID? Because you want to train them overseas before they get here and then guarantee them citizenship through that path. And they're looking at India specifically for this. And why do you want that? Why do you want to undercut your own workers? It's very simple, because they're going to have massive natural resource contracts, which they want low paid workers that will do typically what's a high paid job. The only way to get that is through mass immigration and pre-training of that mass immigration and tracking those immigrants once they get into the country.
And they've been able to see that in other areas already and do that in other areas already. But speaking of, let's go into Alberta politics, and then we'll continue reading your comments.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
What's that? Her dog did a weird bark. It sounded like she was barking inside of a cup.
Well, she was surprised, I think. It was the surprise bark.
Let's start with this from Northern Perspective, saying, quote, look at the record. You do not have to be partisan to see the problem. Mark Carney just said we are in a stronger position now than we were 18 months ago when the tariff war started. Canadians were promised strength. The results show anything but.
Yeah, and let's zoom in on this. Now, Northern Perspective had this almost a week ago, and I've been meaning to bring it up, but we've had so many stories and we've been a bit overwhelmed. This is the price of not getting a tariff deal, and it's only going to get worse, especially after the midterms, especially if Trump wins the midterms, which there is a good chance he can, especially if you look past the propaganda and you actually look how far the Republicans are behind by. They're only behind by about 4 points on average right now. The last two times they were in the midterms, they were 10 points behind and 12 points behind, and they did fairly well at that point. The big tipping point for the midterms is going to be the $1 billion the Republicans have that the Democrats don't. And I think that is going to be a huge advantage. Also, Trump is the president in power. So if he manages to do something major in Iran, get that solved and a couple other things, he's going to be going strong into the midterms.
Mm-hmm. And it's U.S. tariffs on Canada when Mark Carney took office, so March 14th, 2025 versus July 23rd, 2026. This is what elbows up gets you and what judging him by grocery prices and, oh, I'm the best negotiator out there gets you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to read them all?
No, you don't have to read them all. People can kind of see it. So hopefully if you're watching and not listening, take a good look at this, because this is the price. This is your new USMCA. And this is the price of not actually renegotiating the USMCA. We have the strongest deal of any country around the world. That strongest deal is no longer the strongest deal. Mexico has a better deal and your deal is slipping away. Also, you're on the chopping block. At any time, Trump can give you a 6-month notice and completely pull the rug out from underneath you and start hollowing out your economy. Right now, he's really focused on the EU, the UK, and the globalists. And although Mark Carney is a big part of that, he's focused on that part right now. After the midterms, I think he's going to focus in on Canada. And that's where you might see him absolutely cancel the USMCA.
And also, again, we know that there have been talks with Mexico where both Mexico and the US came out to say that Canada hasn't tried to even be involved in any of the talks. They haven't even showed up. And Canada tried to lie and say, oh, it's the US that doesn't want to show up to the table. And no, then Mexico and the US both came to say, we're on our 3rd round of talks. We try to get Canada to show up. And yet they don't seem very interested in doing that. And even Canadian media has had to come out to say, okay, well, yeah, we're a little bit behind on the trade. Well, whose fault is it?
Yeah, Mexico is actually a really, really emerging economy, especially since they have overtaken China when it comes to manufacturing. It is now cheaper to manufacture goods within Mexico than China because the lower class, their wage has gone way up. This has given Mexico a huge advantage and has become absolutely crucial to the United States. Canada is not crucial in the same way. The only part of Canada that is crucial are those western provinces. British Columbia for its mining, Saskatchewan for its potash, and Alberta for its oil and natural gas. And a lot of those 3 provinces, a lot of them share those resources. For instance, the Rocky Mountains runs through Alberta as well.
Mm-hmm. And now for a retarded idea. Speaking of Alberta, Marty Up North says it would also be an act of war because Daniel Smith says Alberta NDP leader, of course, Naheed Nenshi the Frog, says we need to threaten the U.S. with an export tax on Alberta's oil and gas to create leverage in trade negotiations with the Americans. An export tax on Alberta oil to the U.S. would literally put over 100, blah, blah, blah. But he says, yeah, then she threatens an export tax, saying an export tax on Alberta oil to the U.S. would literally put over 100,000 Albertans out of work almost overnight. It would be like punching ourselves in the face.
Okay, yeah, and let's talk about this for a minute. We don't want to put any kind of export tax, or we don't want to really push hard. That's not the way you're going to get a good deal with the Americans here. The thing is, with an export tax, the U.S. does pay undervalue for Canadian oil because there is only one customer, and that is the United States. Right now, Donald Trump is really playing softball with the Canadians, trying to nudge them in the right direction while he deals with a lot of bigger issues worldwide, whether that's Iran, whether that's the European Union or the UK. But if Canada were to do something like this, put an export tax on oil, that would get recognition from the United States, and they have this much leverage when Canada has about this much. They would absolutely crush Canada at that point. Canada's lucky they're in the position they're in where, well, Trump is dealing with so many other issues at the same time.
But also imagine what this would do for the current non-existent trade negotiations already not happening with the US. But now go back to your comments. Well, the guy abandons me. Steven Jensen says, hot day in Mirror today, great day. See, I told you all that it was probably hot up there. But I'm glad that at least you get nicer weather. Kyopo also says, an Indian who told me he gets 60 rupees to the Canadian dollar is only working for his PR, works 6 months and goes back to India. And in cycles, he said he hates Canada. And funnily enough, this was right before we left. Both the guy and I were in jobs that touched not touched, that sounds weird, interacted with a lot of more newcomers to Canada, many of them from India, at least in the guys' experience. And they were mostly saying 6 months in, a year in, that they were already planning to leave because Canada is not at all what they were expecting, and they would be doing way much better at home. Much better at home.
Yeah, I remember before we left Canada, I had to work 4 part-time jobs, one of them full-time, and I couldn't get the regular jobs I used to have that were high paying. So 3 of those jobs, I believe, were minimum wage or close to minimum wage. And it was all mass immigrants coming from primarily India. And I would talk to a lot of them, and all of them could see through the illusion. That wasn't always the case, because I had always worked with Indians in Canada. But before, they used to actually tough it out and wait till they got their PR. Now they're just like, no, this is not the dream that was sold to me. I still have enough money to go home at this point. I want to get back home before I don't have that money. A lot of them actually own nice houses and property and farms back in India.
Yeah, because I mean, the amount of money they are able to generate, but also their cost is much different compared to Canada.
Well,
and that's even an experience that I, as a person from Mexico, had when I went to Canada.
Well, that was primarily the female Indians wanted to just go back home now. But the male Indians were looking to get into the United States almost always. And they thought if they would tough it out in Canada, it would be an easier entry into the U.S. And that seems to be almost every single person, Indian's goal that I was talking to, that I was working, they were trying to figure out how to get into the U.S. because they knew it was a much better economy, especially if you're willing to work hard.
And if you don't think that that has any repercussions, or that the U.S. isn't looking at this as a factor as well, being the very porous border, I think as someone mentioned that Canada has within the U.S., well, then I have a bridge to sell you. Hold on. Justin GP says, we want to see this infamous doggy we keep hearing about on camera one day. She's been on camera before. Is she asleep?
No, she's awake.
I guess but be nice to her. Be gentle. She has a back injury, so she can't. Oh, no, you're holding her. Yeah, there you go. There she is. Her name is Girl.
Let's give her side profile.
Nobody wants to see her side profile. Her name is Girl. She's a Frenchie, and she has back issues. She has a spine issue.
Yeah, that's why I got to carry her like that.
Exactly. What else? I got
We'll keep
distracted
going.
with the dog.
The star came in for once.
Oh, her name is Girl because guy. Girl.
Well, and if anybody watches the countdown clock before the show, there's a dog that looks a lot like her that we put in
It's
there
her
because
double.
of her. Yeah. She comes around the 2-minute mark.
Yeah, because we tried to film her against the white background. It did not work. We tried to do it with her, so we had to use a double. Meaning one I found on Canva. Valerie Drossel says, so Blackstone, Brookfield, and KKR just signed a $16 billion deal with Kuwait, of course, for an oil pipeline.
Yeah, and the Middle East is just building all kinds of pipelines, and they're building them at record pace. It seems like these pipelines aren't taking more than 6 to 12 months to build. Canada, on the other hand, it takes them 6 to 12 months just to start talks for an MOU, which is crazy.
But funnily enough, if indeed Brookfield is involved, then I mean they could be doing the same in Canada because that's where their owner is and with the country he governs, but he doesn't want to.
Well, it's a different situation in Canada because they want to nationalize the natural resource industry. I think it's a much different path to natural resource development.
And Justin GP, thank you so much for the $6.99 super chat saying for Girl. She appreciates it. She'll probably get some kind of treat. Kim Panjali says...
She gets a treat every single day before the show.
Well, that's true, yeah.
I almost forgot to make it today, and then Nat started guilt tripping me over it.
Because that's what
So then I made it.
we keep her distracted that way with peanut butter in a toy. Kim Panjali says, and the dependency on trade with Canada is way overstated. Most states will only lose 1 to 2% GDP if trade ends. They can absorb the damage, but Canada will be destroyed.
Well, and there's alternatives to everything Canada has, not on the long term. On the long term, it would be beneficial for the United States to get what Western provinces have. But if Canada thinks they're going to play hardball, cut off energy resources or mining resources, there's already multiple other countries to go to. And although they might not be ideal, he would far rather go to those countries than have the economy take a hit right before the midterms. Because I think what the Canadians are thinking is maybe we can hit him before the midterms and cut off oil or something like that. If they actually made that play, he would simply take sanctions off of Russia for a short period of time till after the midterms, or he would negotiate a deal with Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and release a ton of oil from that region as well. So, I mean, there are a lot of options for any play Canada could do to try to hurt the United States before the midterms or the 2028 elections. There's a counter move, and the United States definitely knows that counter move right now.
Exactly. And lastly, let me read some from Are You and Billy. Portofino, hello, says, just got back from cool, I'm going to have to say, well, I'll say the name. From Cool Shit Warehouse in Red Deer. Great place. Picked up some merch and a Republic of Alberta plate. Spoke to the owner. Super nice guy. And unfortunately, this is a business, again, Cool Shit Warehouse in Red Deer, that got broken into, vandalized, broken window by some deranged person that wants to shackle Alberta to Canada.
Yeah, and again, support Alberta independence. Support businesses that support Alberta independence, and that is one of the big businesses that have really walked the walk. So, and the Whistle Stop as well, obviously.
And KP4U, hello, says, "Oh, nice puppy." I told you she kind of does look like the dog we have at the beginning. And KP4U says, "Did you see that Danielle Smith interview on CBC? She was licking Carney's, I'm going to have to say, danglers the whole time."
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not impressed with Danielle Smith. Everybody knows my position. I tend to take unpopular positions because I'm the first one to come to a lot of these positions. And then you'll see a couple months later, a lot of people come to the same conclusion. We're going to have a leadership review on Danielle Smith after the non-binding referendum if we want to force a binding referendum in a quick fashion. Otherwise, the timeline is going to be extended to 2 years or more.
And lastly, Charlie Defoe says, Alberta would never cut off oil on the U.S. Never. I don't think Alberta would. But
and here's the thing I talked about, I think, on yesterday's episode. Yeah, Danielle Smith has straight up come out and said, no, she wouldn't cut off oil to the U.S. But if the U.S. cancels the USMCA, that's the excuse Carney is looking for to immediately declare the Emergencies Act. And I think he has a lot more power over energy that's going out of Canada, not just Alberta, because you have to realize every single pipeline out of Alberta right now goes through another province. And although Alberta won't do it, Carney has a lot more of a grasp on these other provinces like Saskatchewan or BC or anything like that. And he might just declare the Emergencies Act and then cut off that oil. Kind of going around Alberta's power that they think they might have.
And it sounds like an outsized, insane, ridiculous plan, but we've already seen them use similar mechanisms, let's just say, in the past for way less.
Well, and this is one of the big reasons. As soon as we get our independence, we need to build multiple pipelines from Alberta going directly into the United States.
That are already approved by the U.S.
That gives us direct leverage to start playing hardball with British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the other provinces because, well, number one, have an income coming in and we'll have a good trade reliance with the United States. On top of that, when we build those pipelines, we can go zero tariff on all trade. The United States has already indicated they would want something like that.
But now let's actually go. We'll continue reading your comments after, but let's go to Alberta Personalities. And I think we're starting with a clip of two of my least favorite people.
They need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And it's mainly U.S. personalities because the midterms are coming up and we do need to hope that the Republicans win the midterms so they can go strong into 2028 because we want somebody like J.D. Vance in there that will recognize Alberta as an independent country once we win that vote. And a lot of people say, well, Trump's going to be in office. Not necessarily. If Carney and Danielle Smith get their way and lengthen this thing out to a 2 to 3 year timeline, we're going to be relying on the next president, and the best next president for Alberta, I believe, would be J.D. Vance.
Marco Rubio kind of up there too.
No, I don't necessarily think Marco Rubio is quite as good because the neocons, I don't know if they would necessarily recognize Alberta.
But now, Grimaldo says, quote, Nick Fuentes calls out Hunter Biden. Funnily enough, they're in the same room together for crying about racism.
And one of the big reasons I brought this clip up, I ended up watching the entire thing. It was somewhat fascinated, but I wanted to see what their game plan is. There's a lot of moving pieces in the United States right now. I think J.D. Vance and a Marco Rubio ticket are extremely strong. And no matter who the Democrats put up, it's going to be a weaker ticket. So the only way to beat a Vance Rubio ticket is to divide the vote. So how would they divide the vote? They would have to create a third party. This is not the only time people from two sides are getting together.
From these two sides.
From the left and from the right, but also Stephen A. Smith and Tucker Carlson are getting together for conversations on a regular basis as well. They're starting to talk about, number one, a third party, but number two, who would be a candidate from the Democratic side that they would endorse. Nick Fuentes is supposed to be right wing. That's highly suspect at this point. And he said at the end of the interview, he would most likely endorse a Gavin Newsom over a J.D. Vance, and so did Hunter Biden. So maybe the plan is to start endorsing a Gavin Newsom and possibly create a third party here.
But that's what I mean. It's two very specific sides of the left, the more DSA radical insane people, and the right, which would be the retarded right, Tucker Carlson, Nick, etc.
People don't want to live around that. People don't want to live around that. You know, in Chicago, it rolled on into the summer, and it wasn't, you know, let's say the anger of the oppressed and the disenfranchised.
So
they were looting. They were looting and carjacking. The criminals.
Yeah. Who are?
Mostly black.
Nick, you know,
is that not true?
Yeah, maybe, Nick. I don't know. I just don't. I don't know why you use the platform that you have to make that your target. So are you saying that the problem with the 26-year-old white kid living in suburbia outside of Chicago and his feeling of being disenfranchised is because there was looting and rioting in Minneapolis by black people, and it's black people that are doing it?
Yeah. I mean, the problem with Austin Metcalf was that he got stabbed in the neck at a track meet. And the problem with our city in Chicago is that the Magnificent Mile is gone. Water Tower Place is gone because of all the crime.
Nick, and the problem with an entire generation of African Americans is that they've been getting killed by cops for decades. What are you talking about, Nick?
Okay, and you can leave it there. And basically what happened on most subjects, they obviously had your more traditional left-right ideas on it. And then at the end, it was a Trump-hating fest, Trump derangement syndrome. And then they complemented that with, well, going into 2028, who should we endorse? A Gavin Newsom is what they're trying to put up. And you're seeing horseshoe theory really starting to merge out the Democratic Socialists of America and a lot of right-wing commentators that seem to be getting paid off. And there's investigations going on right now. X, a lot of the programmers at X are actually putting out comments about certain content creators that seem like they are taking some kind of payoff.
It's funny because if you go back and watch some of our geopolitical shows way back when, about a year ago, we were talking about this horseshoe theory that would start getting solidified around the midterms, where we would start to see really random, crazy opinions coming from people that usually didn't used to have those, and that there was probably money being exchanged. And now, fruition, we were seeing it.
And again,
I don't know how you could stand watching that whole thing.
And again, it's not just those two. There are a lot of very prominent figures that are on the fringes of both the left and the right that are, number one, having conversations, hating on Trump, and then trying to come up with a solution. And their solution is either, oh, we're going to endorse a Gavin Newsom, or we're going to create a third party potentially, which would divide the vote. That is their plan, I believe, is to divide the vote, because they know in a straight up race, no matter who the Democratic candidate is, they're not going to be able to beat a J.D. Rubio ticket. And I believe J.D. Vance is the best candidate for Alberta and Alberta independence if we want the U.S. president to recognize us as a country.
Speaking of the U.S. president, Igor Realtuk says, breaking, Trump running for president again. Alberta has a longer opportunity for independence.
And again, he was joking around. This is at what was at the press convention thing they were having, that there was an attempt on his life at the last time, so they had to cut it short. So he redid it to show you're not going to scare him. That's number one. But number two, me and you had theorized, and I think if she was in a better position, and she hasn't played it that well, mainly because of her husband, was Ivanka Trump. And what we were saying is, yeah, it says Trump 2028. I think just before the election, they would make a pink 2028 hat, and it would be Ivanka Trump. He was trying to position her all the way along. I just don't think it's working out too well. I think Rubio Vance would be the best ticket for 2028.
Now I'm going to do it again. Thank you. I'm going to do it. Should be easy. I'm getting very good at running for president. Now, I won 3 times, did very well the second time, by the way. It's a rigged election, but we don't have to talk about it. You know, it's interesting when you come back and you do a good job like we did, and you don't care about it so much, but we do have to tighten up these elections because they really are in serious. Now I'm going to do it again.
Okay, and the strongest two candidates to run against Vance Rubio ticket is either going to be a headliner of a Bernie Sanders or Gavin Newsom at this point. Gavin Newsom is not polling well, but I think he is the strongest candidate. Bernie Sanders, they're going to need to pair him with a secondary strong candidate. This is not like normal elections. Both Rubio and JD Vance are heavy hitters. Both in each individually could be president. So the Democrats are going to have to run a two-name ticket there. They're not going to be able to take a nobody out of nowhere.
I do really like the idea of the pink Trump, because back then when we were saying that, the conversation, everybody was going haywire, the Democrats obviously, and the insane people saying, oh my God, he's actually going to try to do it. He's going to try to take the US by force. He is a dictator. And I just found it really funny that if at one point that Trump 2028 would turn into a pink one and would be Ivanka Trump.
Yeah, he was trying to.
But I don't like the idea of an Ivanka Trump presidency, honestly.
Right from the first administration he was trying to really place Ivanka Trump in crucial roles to build up her resume. I really think Jared Kushner, her husband, is undermining a lot of that. So.
Yeah, but it's also really funny to see all the derangement comments under Igor's posts. And Igor obviously knew it was a joke, but everybody's like, this is going to undermine blah, blah, blah.
Well, and if they did want to get Ivanka in there, I think they would do it through JD Vance, have him be the primary on the ticket and try to pair her with her. If she was stronger at this point, they may have tried it, but I think they're going to really need JD and a Rubio to have mass appeal, and it's going to guarantee the Latino vote.
And she also did take a step back a while ago. But let's go back to your comments. Sean says the Maldives belong to Argentina. Yes. Oh, more hot takes. Okay. And free Cascadia. Let the crazies all live together. Having lived in BC, did you guys ever get a sense that there was much of a Cascadia movement? No. I mean, it was kind of talked of during the truckers' convoy, but no.
Oh, what's Cascadia movement? I haven't even heard of it.
Where essentially it's all the Pacific coast essentially splitting off and becoming its own thing.
Yeah,
or like from above LA essentially to.
Well, yeah, I could definitely see it happen because the ideology is far left all the way up to Vancouver. And especially if Alberta gets its independence, BC becomes very isolated.
It's more like a right-wing thing.
Yeah, I know. But there's been a lot of talk about Vancouver actually breaking off to the United States if Alberta gets its independence, because ideologically it aligns so much with the left coast, number one. But number two, they're economically isolated as well.
It's Seattle with maple syrup.
Yeah.
A bit less guns, a bit more knives. But what I was going to say, but yes, las Malvinas son argentinas. Exactly. Thank you. I've been fighting on, well, not fighting on, but watching a lot of the discourse on that whole Malvinas Falklands thing in the UK Argentina stuff. There is a hate campaign going on about Argentina, but eventually I'll make a video on it. Justin GP says that speech from Trump sure did trigger the TDS in many. And I think as was intended. So yeah. I'm glad it did.
Absolutely. And he should keep doing things like that, especially leading up to the midterms and the 2028 election, because it's going to make the Democrats lose their mind and lose focus on what the target should be, which is JD Vance and Rubio. They're extremely strong individually, and together they're going to be even stronger.
And Sean says Obama said at a correspondence dinner with Trump in attendance that he would never be president, telling very nasty jokes about him. Yeah, I remember. Well, and wait, the Obama, the one that just got connected to the Venceremos Brigade in Cuba. Yeah, that same very one.
Trump actually addressed that exact comment that you made at that exact conference right there. And what he said is a lot of people think that was the moment and they point to it, but it absolutely wasn't. And he said he went more in depth and said what actually made him run for president there. So.
And Sean says, so not much of a Cascadia thing. No, it's been big here for as long as I lived in Oregon. I mean, you weren't allowed. I'm guessing it's also maybe you're not fully allowed to talk about it because let's remember, I don't even know if I can say it on YouTube, but Daya space Golan, you couldn't say that on social media for the longest time.
I used to live in Washington State as well for a little while, and there is a lot of talk in Washington State as well as Oregon that the eastern side of those provinces want to break off and join other states because ideologically they just don't agree with Seattle and Portland, yeah.
Camp
I was losing my thought there for a minute. You saved me.
He looks at me like he's scared. Camp Angeli says, yes, it's hot, but I got argon-filled windows installed and it doesn't get that hot in the house. Good. Hopefully You're still allowed to have air conditioning, though, because, I mean, soon that's also coming to Canada. Charlie Defoe says, then she is a wingnut. Very much so.
Oh, and he's going to be the mayor of Calgary again.
And Thomas Muse says Newscomb got way too many corruption investigations on him to be able to run. Has that ever stopped anyone?
Yeah, and
He's the only thing they have. I mean, I'm sure
no,
they'd be...
the Bernie Sanders will be the strongest candidate when
Crypt Keeper.
when they put him up. He's also the leader of the DSA, and a lot of people don't understand that, and they don't understand the politics that has happened behind the scenes for the last decade. Bernie Sanders is actually well placed right now, especially with the emergence of the DSA, and I think the DSA is going to do well in the midterms because they work well in small pockets in the United States, so it's going to make them appear stronger than they are. But the DSA, or the Democratic Socialists of America, will not play well in a presidential election because a lot of moderate liberals are absolutely going to reject communism.
Justin DeP says you spelled Oregon wrong. Oregon. And Kyopo says, keep Portland weird. Keep Portland away from me. Honestly. I've been once.
Well, and
Don't
it's a
need to go
shame
back.
how beautiful Portland, Washington, Vancouver are, and how ideology has absolutely destroyed all those places, including most of California as well.
Is it beautiful? It's all trees.
Yeah, I like it.
And lakes and stuff.
I like it.
Mountains.
I like
If you
it.
don't hike or ski, it's not much for you there. Okay, now let's go into Alberta's Canada. Speaking of.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And let's hope the stream doesn't crash because it's giving me indications that it wants to quit on us. But
Okay, so it might start freezing up on you.
Viva Fry says, quote, meanwhile in Canada, media and politicians melting down over bigot fest, hate group, inciting racist and harmful narratives. Holy hell, I wish I was still in Canada so that I could go document this event. So do I, honestly.
Well, and it's kind of funny. I actually grabbed this clip before I watched Viva Fry's full analysis, and I guess they're trying to connect it to Diagolon, Wexit, and some of the organizers that were in there. But again, you should have freedom of assembly according to the Canadian Constitution. So it's absolutely ridiculous that they're trying to cut out freedom of assembly. I will give the police some credit at the end because they did put out a statement on this.
A human rights organization is among those warning people in North Bay about a gathering being marked on social media as Bigot Fest. CTV's Madison Merrier spoke with activists who say this type of gathering is not welcome.
Human rights group Anibrith Canada is warning North Bay residents of a possible hate group gathering coming to town this weekend. The event is advertised online as a family-friendly festival called Bigot Fest. Anibrith Canada
Okay,
says
and pause it here for a minute, and you have to think this is a meme festival to really point out the hypocrisy of the left, because you know it is going to trigger them and they're going to come at them, and then you can push back with, we're supposed to have freedom of assembly.
The event is known to have white supremacist ideology.
There are individuals who are known right across Canada for peddling in hate, sowing division, and inciting racist and harmful narratives, and we don't believe that there's a place for that in any Canadian city.
Mayor Peter Chirico also shares his concerns, saying in a statement, any activity intended to promote racism, hate, or discrimination has no place in North Bay. Our community values respect, inclusion, and the right of everyone
Pause
to
it
feel...
for a second, and I wrote down the actual definition of bigot at the bottom there, if you can read the definition for us. Because I wasn't quite sure. I thought it was racism, but I guess...
It's a bit broader than racism.
Yeah.
A bigot is a person who is obstinately or unreasonable attached to a particular belief, opinion, or group, and who is intolerant or prejudiced toward people who hold different views, belong to different groups, or differ in identity such as race, religion, ethnicity, politics, or other characteristics.
Well, and this sounds like this could be Muslims as well. But this isn't Muslims, but the word bigot would fit under that definition, broadly speaking here. But again, this more or less points out the opposition against the freedom to assemble. You have to allow people to assemble even if you don't agree with their cause, or
And
at
again,
least that's the way it should be.
We do see gatherings in big cities from other religious groups, I will call them, that do call for death to America, death to Canada. We hate white people. Literally saying that, chanting that on the streets.
Feel safe and welcome. He continues saying if the event is happening, it will not be on municipality-owned property.
We don't want Canadians to get the wrong impression. We don't want the international community to get the wrong impression. This is not Canada. This is its dark underbelly.
Police are also aware of the online promise of a planned event, saying in part the role of police is to facilitate safe and lawful gatherings regardless of viewpoint while maintaining public order and protecting the community. They continue saying community members are encouraged to remain aware of their surroundings, avoid engaging, and report any concerning suspicious or criminal behavior to the police.
These groups have been quite open and transparent. They're marketing this. This is part of the monetization of hate. This is part of a hate industry. Get a bunch of vendors that sell problematic content together, get a bunch of people who share a problematic ideology together, and have a quote-unquote
And
festival.
as LGBTQ parades in the street with half-naked individuals
Or
not
naked.
problematic? This is the problem here. I might not agree with both of the type of things, but I'm going to say this. If you're going to label this as problematic, you also need to label these pride parades as problematic, because literally it's grown men walking down the street naked, at least all the ones that are in Vancouver.
But also other religious gatherings that call for the death of the place you're actually living in.
And I
think that's a bit more hateful, even though I don't believe in hate speech.
And I will say I didn't mind the actual statement from the police themselves at the end. So
Yeah, I
which
mean,
was
that,
good.
technically that is their job.
Yeah.
And again, if they're not actually doing physical or inciting real violence at that moment, at that time,
But
let
the,
them
the
speak.
big question is, what's the city going to do? Because they said it can't go on city grounds. So are you going to favor one group over another there?
I mean, they already have. But next on the selling and buying and the bridge, Andrew Scheer says Carney still can't come clean on tollgate. He caved to the US and kept the truth hidden for weeks. Instead of keeping 100% of the tolls until Canadian taxpayers are repaid, Carney signed away 50%. So much for the master negotiator.
And Andrew Scheer has been making very good, highly edited videos. So this really does help Alberta independence out. I'm glad we're able to kind of put this out to really highlight the direction Canada is going.
Not a fan of Andrew Scheer, but
No.
Recently, Mark Carney announced a deal with the U.S. to open up the Gordie Howe Bridge. Now, a few years ago, the previous Conservative government reached a deal with the U.S. to build the Gordie Howe Bridge. Canadians paid for the entire thing. In fact, we even paid for the on-ramps and connections to U.S. highways and the various ports of entry. In return, the deal was that Canada would keep 100% of the tolls until the construction costs were paid off. Now, Mark Carney just agreed to a deal where the U.S. gets to keep half of the tolls collected, and some of that money goes into a regional development fund for Michigan.
A senior government source tells Global News, Canada has agreed to give up 50% of the profits from the bridge, money that will go into an American-controlled fund. Canada, who paid the entire $6.4 billion to build the bridge, was supposed to get all the money until they were made whole. Canada also giving the Americans a veto on any toll increases above 10% and aren't allowed to drop fares below comparable regional averages, according to the same source. A win for
And you see how you're going to continue to play this, but they put a lot of control mechanisms on how much they can charge for tolls. Why? Because there's already an older bridge. If the Americans get 100% of everything over that other bridge, so a lot of this money that's going to come in, I'm going to suspect that they're going to revamp that older bridge and try to divert traffic over there so they can keep 100% of the profits. That's why this deal was not good. Not just the 50%, but the other control mechanisms they allowed the Americans to have here.
major Trump donor, the Maroon family, who also owns the rival Ambassador Bridge.
Mark Carney just completely caved on the Gordie Howe Bridge. And again, the spin from liberal apologists is that the deal that Mark Carney came back with was the best that anybody could do.
If you look at everyone who came to an agreement with Trump at some point, those have been reneged, altered, changed, at least once, if not multiple times. This is not a normal administration that any government is dealing with.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And one other thing I would say here is all these things, and this is the problem with Mark Carney trying to make small deal here, small deal there. Canada does not have enough leverage to make these small deals. That's why he keeps losing. He needed to not make any deals, put everything on the table at once and make one big deal. That's how Trump likes to do things. That's how he's done things with every single other country.
And yet, lastly, CBC Watcher says, quote, Ian Lee saying, and it should appeal to everybody's common sense that when you have a very large country and a very small country getting into a trade war, overwhelmingly the advantage is to the very large country.
Woodstock, New York. Ian Lee, so nice to see you this morning.
My pleasure, Marianne.
This has been the talk of the week since the latest tariffs have been announced. And with that discussion comes a lot of debate over what Canada should do. Should Canada retaliate? And if so, how? What's your take on that?
I've been very consistent on this since Trump came into office, and that we should not. I did look at the various studies that have been done of so-called asymmetric trading relationships. In other words, a very large economy trading with a much smaller economy, with a country with a much smaller economy. And the econometric studies, economic studies have been very, very clear, and it should appeal to everybody's common sense. When you have a very large country and a very small country getting into a trade war, overwhelmingly the advantage is to the very large economy. It has more leverage, more levers, more power, and the smaller country loses. So we have to use our smarts in developing better strategies and not say that we can go, mano a mano with the largest economy on planet Earth with 32 trillion. We're 2 trillion. So we have to develop. This is not lying down on the railroad tracks to allow the Americans to stomp all over us. This is about being much more strategic in our negotiations.
Well, let's look at the list because there are hundreds of Canadian products spanning 3 lists: honey, hockey sticks, circular saw blades. Some are odd. There's partial wigs there, fake beards. At first glance, you might say, what does this all mean? But then, of course, there's products there that would take a big impact financially because they send millions of dollars worth of products to the United States every year. So what is the United States doing right now? Is this a negotiating tactic? What do you make of the list?
Yes, it is a negotiating tactic. But just step back, big picture. I think that the actions of the United States, both the president and the trading and Mr.
And this part here is really important because what the Canadians want to say is elbows up. The Canadians don't even, or the Americans don't even want a deal. No, that's exactly the opposite. Let's listen to what he says here.
Greer and the trade negotiators make it very, very clear they want a deal. So there have been some Canadians saying, well, they don't even want to deal with us. If they didn't, they have the full authority under the CUSMA to give 6 months notice and abrogate or cancel the deal. So the fact that they are staying at the table and making all these threats and so forth, that of course make us very angry in Canada, every one of us. At the same time, bizarre way, this is demonstrating how badly they want a deal. It's in their self-interest. In terms of the actual tariffs, I think that they are a negotiating tactic. I think that, and I do not defend.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And yeah, they want to deal with Canada. But they want a fair deal here, and they will break Canada economically if they force them to use their leverage. Carney's going to be much better off to go to the table and get a somewhat of a bad deal, but negotiate everything at once rather than really be hollowed out over and over and over because time is working against Canada in this case.
But now let's go back to your comments and then into Alberta and the world. Steve Safaro says Bernie Sanders only owns 3 pairs of underwear and 3 mansions.
Yeah, and I was watching a lot of analysis from a lot of people that I respect in the United States, and Bernie Sanders was brought up and talked about, and it really changed a lot of my opinion. There's a show called Two Way, I believe, or Two Way Tonight. Fantastic American politics show. But what they were saying is he's got 2 big things working against him. Number one, he's old, and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are a lot younger, and we've had a lot of old presidents at this point. But number 2, also he's sold out, and that's going to be a big thing because after Hillary Clinton kind of took him out, he did take the houses and other things. But those are 2, I think, smaller talking points. And when you look at every other candidate, they have much bigger things working against them. Even J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio have quite, I would say, decent talking points working against them. Number 1, Marco Rubio was obviously a neocon, and J.D. Vance's kind of came out of nowhere and had a lot of money pumped into him through Palantir. So those are things that they're going to have to address either way. I still do think Rubio, J.D. Vance are a extremely small ticket or strong ticket. If they do pair somebody with a Bernie Sanders, they're also going to have to try to make a third party or something like that to divide the vote. I think that's going to be the play for 2028.
What about my Latina sister, AOC?
I have something we were going to talk about that maybe on Monday's episode. There's a lot of talk about AOC going with Kamala Harris, which would be absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, I want that for the comedy and for the content.
Well, because Kamala
gave a lot of content.
Kamala Harris is a joke, but she's polling extremely high, and the Democratic Party, a lot of the moves they're making behind the scenes, it seems like they kind of want a Harris in there, and the DSA would be represented by a AOC rather than a Bernie Sanders in that case. But that is an extremely, extremely weak ticket. So
Sean says that's the problem. Portland had a choice to modernize and grow geographically with bringing in business, and they decided to keep Portland weird, which led to its destruction because they just got weirder and weirder.
Yeah, but it's just I don't mind Oregon being weird in a smaller city. It has a lot of charm to it if it wasn't ideologically taken over by Antifa and other radical groups.
Yes, just kick them out. Sean says, I want to go. Troll fists. Justin Jabi says, so basically the left are bigger bigots than us on the right.
Absolutely. And I think
that isn't anything new. We don't know.
I think we have something, a clip talking about that in Alberta and the world, actually.
Steve Safaro says, there's actually a 20 to 25% Cascadia bioregion support, too low to secede, but high enough for ballot measures in 2028. Maybe within the U.S., but I don't know if with everything going on in Alberta, I don't know if they'd even allow that to be mentioned in the Pacific region.
Yeah, I know there is actually a lot of support for Oregon to break off the eastern half of the state, as well as Washington State. And I would think it would have to be above 30% at this point, easily.
Sean asks, I don't want to sound stupid, but where is North Bay? So, okay, this is the map.
No, just...
Here's Vancouver. North Bay is kind of around up there.
So North Vancouver.
No, way northern.
Okay.
Like up.
So by Squamish.
No, because Squamish is more in.
Okay, well, let's just keep going.
It's up. Google Maps it. Justin, I tried. Justin Jabi says, Sean, you and me can go pretend we are gay conservatives. See the left squirm with that one. It's Northern Ontario. North Bay? There's a North Bay close to Vancouver.
No, I thought they were talking about Ontario as well. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Because I've been to
Yeah, but if we're talking... Okay.
been to a thing there.
Okay.
It's like a camp.
I'm sure there's multiple North Bays, but usually when people are talking about North Bay
because we were
in
talking
Canada...
about Cascadia and Vancouver and up over there. Steve Zafaro says, hey, Trump compared Caitlin Collins of CNN with Dylan Mulvaney of Bud Light debacle. Oh, in his speech and his comedy thing. Okay.
Oh, I don't know if he did. I think somebody
watched
suggested that it would have been funny if he said that joke.
Oh, okay. Sean says, Jess, I don't know. Can I take my bike and go El Natural too? I mean, they'd love that. Jesse DeB says, as long as you spell it neighbor and say Z, they won't know any difference. Sean says, actually not to defend Carney. They are actually not to defend Carney. They are to pay back the construction costs. Oh, they're going to pay back the construction costs first. Feels weird to defend Carney.
Yeah, but you have to understand, and that's what they want to focus on. They're not focusing on how Americans now have control over how much the tolls are and how much they can make compared to the other bridge and things like that. A lot of the devil was really in the details that nobody's kind of focusing on there. And why? Because that other bridge, 100% of the profits are kept by the Americans. So once they revamp that bridge and they really start trying to push traffic towards that bridge, it's going to have a huge impact.
Sean says, Jess, that's a big ask. And also says, just pointing out the obvious, but Bernie is Jewish like me. It's not an easy thing to escape, and he won't win the Democrat primary due to that. I do actually agree with you on that because there's so much derangement around all of that topic as well right now in the U.S., especially with that new horseshoe that's forming, essentially around on hating.
I completely disagree with that, actually, because I was actually watching them kind of talk about that. That was one of the big things they brought up. And they said, well, it doesn't affect him at all because he's not a practicing Jew and he is hardcore Palestine supporter. And he has backing from the DSA. He is the head of the DSA. So it doesn't, that the fact that he's supposedly Jewish, I don't think is going to affect him at all because it doesn't affect him on his voting. And yeah.
But if people investigate and find out things, then I don't know. It could hurt him.
I don't think it's going to hurt him at all, actually.
I mean, I don't want him in there, but Sanjay
I just think J.D. Vance and Rubio are much stronger ticket. They're going to have to use multiple strategies as creating a third party and then having a very, very strong ticket.
Sanjali says, hello, Nan and Guy. Hello, and thank you for being here. Philip Vespa, hello, says, have retreated to cottage with my family for the week. Oh, nice. Says, watching your stream using Starlink because that is the best internet they have. Elon is the best. I think it will become the go-to in the future. We were thinking about it, but because it's kind of blocked and it rains here a lot and it's hard to have something that can point at the sky.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what's going on with Starlink, and it's not only the future, it is the future. All cell phones are going to be installing radio frequencies that's now owned by Starlink. So most of them are going to be satellite connected, which will be interesting how that will deal with censorship because a lot of countries will have trouble censoring phones in the future, possibly. But there's also a lot of other things up Starlink's sleeve right now, which have come out through their patents, but not out in the real world yet. So.
Philip Espa says, I think some MPs like Mr. Scheer really want to support independence, but Pierre won't let them. It makes me sad.
Yeah, not only Pierre Poilievre won't let them, but Danielle Smith won't let them. She's made it clear as well.
Philip Espa says, it is in Ontario. It's a nice city if you get a chance to visit. I think I stopped by a bus depot called North Bay, in a place called North Bay, but in BC. But yes, Sean says, Guy, oh sweet child, believe me, it matters. I know it matters too. He doesn't seem to think so.
A lot of people don't understand Bernie Sanders. They know him from the time Hillary Clinton ousted him. They don't know what he's been doing behind the scenes with the DSA. He is the heart of that organization. Now, he's going to want to pass the torch, obviously, to an AOC after, but I think this is his last hurrah.
But he might be just a useful idiot, and then the best excuse to kick him out is exactly that.
That's not... You'll see, and the DSA understands they need somebody that can appeal as a moderate, even though he's not. Why would he be appealed as a moderate? Because Trump has stolen a lot of Bernie Sanders' policies. He has directly said that he took Bernie Sanders' policies. Bernie Sanders is going to point that out in order to have broad appeal to even the right wing.
Oh no, Pure Sangwe Tulio says, it looks like your Rumble feed or your MBLE feed is down.
Oh, that's fine. Why don't we go into Alberta and the World?
Like is down. Okay, well, we could do that. You check because otherwise we can't go over to our UMBLE. But let's go to Alberta and the World and then troubleshoot. Oh. The guy just checked. Apparently, it is still working on our UMBLE. Maybe it is just you.
Yeah.
Maybe censorship came. But let's start with, speaking of censorship, let's start with Dallas Brody, who got kicked out and has been censored over and over again, but says, I started 1BC because normal people needed a party that represented their views against the radical fringe that has been normalized in government.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up this clip because this was an absolutely spot-on, fantastic clip by Elon Musk again, and I absolutely love Dallas Brody. She has that Alberta spirit, even though she's a politician within British Columbia. She's one of the few good politicians within Canada.
This economy says Elon Musk rejects the far-right label in exchange with The Economist. So this lady is from The Economist.
And she had this snobby attitude the entire way through, even when she was asking nice questions. I'm glad he hit back here.
She's from The Economist.
You support not just the populist right, but the far right. In fact, very fringe parties in some countries.
No, I support the normal people.
Okay.
What do you call the far right? Falsely.
You think is the normal person. Okay.
Yes. Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal. In fact, one of the tricks I think is funny. One thing that's quite funny is to take a speech from Obama and Hillary, and then go to someone and say, who's sort of on the sort of what I call the lunatic left, and say, what do you think of the speech by Trump? I'm like, oh wow, he's the worst person ever. Actually, that was a speech by Obama, or actually, that was a speech by Hillary.
And one of the good examples of that I was just watching yesterday was Obama when he was running, kept pointing out George Bush let 5 million illegal immigrants across the border. We need to shut down the border. Hillary ran on the same thing. So did Bill. All of Trump's policies are former Democratic policies from not that long ago. Musk is absolutely right here.
And I wish he had brought up a clip because there's millions of clips of people doing that on the streets, like reading a part of a speech and then saying, oh, Trump's out. Oh my God, I hate him. And then they're saying, actually, that was Hillary. And then people being like, no, that's not true. And then they look it up. And yeah, of course it is.
I agree. No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted, certainly in the Democratic Party, shifted to the left. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert Lowe. I'm talking about
please.
People
it's actually just normal people. It's just normal people. It's just normal people. And and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders. That we should have safe cities. That we should have sensible spending. Which of those three are far right fringe? And I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense. Please keep this part in.
We'll keep all of this in, but let me
Don't cut this part.
And he went on to say later on that, because she said, a lot of people don't like you. And he goes, well, I have 250 million followers on X, so I think more people do like me. And I think what you underestimate is how much people dislike you and the mainstream media. Mm-hmm. And he's absolutely right about that.
Exactly. And sorry, my camera froze and it looked weird for a second. But next, Mari Newful says about Trump saying talking about LeBron.
And this is what I was talking about, the clip about when we were talking about bigots and how the left are more bigots than the right. And this is just, LeBron is a perfect example of this. If a lot of people don't follow LeBron, he just has ludicrous takes when it comes to politics.
And I think LeBron is, maybe he's a racist, but maybe he doesn't like Trump. I don't know, but I only like people that like me. So I would say Michael Jordan all the way. And I think
I also only like people that like me. No, I don't.
Well, and LeBron's trying to turn basketball to soccer. He's always flopping around all over the place. Michael Jordan used to do none of that.
Flopping. But it's also funny, and you don't never like it when I interject my own stuff or what I've been looking into. But it's also funny that right now, so many actors, actresses, Samuel L. Jackson, who else? Everybody came out. I Show Speed, whom I hate, really don't like, just because of his antics. A lot of these people hating on Argentina just because social media told them to. And it is interesting to see how quickly and how insidiously all of this Argentina hatred spread, and this whole Argentina is racist thing spread, always also stemming from, who right now is the current president of Argentina? What are the different policies that they have? Who is he attached to? And where all the hate is actually coming from, which is many European cities that are falling apart, but also Canada, which is also interesting. Okay, fine. I need to say something about it, but fine. I'll keep talking to myself. Maybe I'll make shorts about it or something if anybody's interested. Jasmine Lane says,
I just don't like soccer. I don't care about soccer.
it's not soccer. It's about global politics, globalism, trying to take back. Sorry. Jasmine Lane says Trump is untrustworthy, unpredictable, a big bully who wants to steal our resources and maybe invade us next. That's the story about America right now. So I asked the U.S. ambassador himself, point blank, his answer may or may not shock you. And we play a lot of the U.S. ambassador to Canada.
It's very easy to trust America on this. The USMCA has not been violated, regardless of what some Canadians say. The USA has not, as we've gone through this tariff, we have not violated USMCA. It is still in place. The president has been in office for roughly 19 months. And even though we've had this tariff dispute where we're saying certain things need to be revised, USMCA has been followed from the United States standpoint during that whole period of time. And that covers $2.5 billion of goods and services of goods going across the border each and every day. That has not been violated. It's very easy to trust America.
Yeah, and he's right. It hasn't been violated. Now, they're going to both make their case within a court. So there's actually a process to this whole thing because Canada is saying they're violating it. They're saying they're not. They're actually saying Canada is violating it, which I think there's far more evidence to that. But either which way it is, it's like just make the deal before this thing goes to court and wipe it all clean.
Yes.
Continue.
Now let's go back into your comments. Oh no, don't abandon me because next one's for you. Fine. I'll wait to read your comments, Sean, just so he can answer to them. Persangwe says your Rumble feed is up and down. Oh, apologies for that. Again, it is something we can't fully control, unfortunately, but hopefully it'll work when we go over to Are You and Billy. Silverfeet says Dallas is amazing. I wrote a poem about her too. Oh, lovely. I do hope that book eventually comes out of your poetry and your poems, and we are able to see it as well. If you ever do want to share it, you know we love to share our subscribers' stuff on here as well. We usually and have been highlighting Steven Jensen a lot, but if Rage Against Machine or anybody else like yourself, Silverfeet, want to send us something, we're always very happy to see it, read it, pay attention to it. So please do. Dallas, and yes, Dallas is amazing. We do have an interview, if you haven't watched it, with Dallas Brody, where she openly supports Alberta's independence and talks about experiences that her father had working in Alberta and how that also helped her understand Alberta and Albertans better. Philip Espa says, I don't know anyone who is far right. I do know far leftists from my university days. Same. You will be amazed by how many adults who still don't know how the world works. Well, and they do not know or they don't want to know how the world works because it's too difficult. It's much easier to think, oh, communism, have somebody else advocate for yourself, advocate for you, advocate for minorities, and then, number one, feel better about yourself by being the better person and by asking everybody to give everything to everybody for free, but then not having to fully grasp the central concepts of what you fully advocate for is easier than having to grapple with the fact that, for example, those that want to go all for communism don't fully understand that communism has been implemented and what those consequences have been. I miss doing shows by myself now that you left me. I remembered what it was like.
Oh, you don't want me here anymore. Just be live with the Nat.
Live with the Nat.
Yeah.
Shut up. I used to do a show in Spanish. It's been on pause for quite a few months now. Might come back soon.
Okay, let's keep going here.
Sean, and this is why I waited to read Sean's
Sorry, the
one.
dog had to use the restroom as well. So.
That's what I live with. Sean says, the reason why Bernie being Jewish matters is he can be pro-Palestine, but he doesn't support BDS. And the socialists will want that for any candidate running. Thank you.
I'm telling you right now, the Democratic Socialists of America realize the power of a Bernie Sanders, and that's why they're going to use him.
But they also have a very easy way to oust him.
He's the only one that they're going to be able to put up that's going to have broad appeal, and that has shown in the past he can actually pitch communist ideas in a moderate way, because anytime anybody else pitches it, it's unacceptable. It was so acceptable that Republicans accepted those ideas through Donald Trump when he pitched the exact same ideas and said, I took those from Bernie Sanders, actually. And that's going to be the big issue. Bernie Sanders is... People don't see him as the real threat that he is, I think. And he does have more mass appeal than anybody else in the DSA. And they actually had to steal it from him when they ousted him with Hillary the last time. Now, I don't like him and I don't want him in there because I see him for what he is, but...
Sean also says LeBron is definitely racist. Now maybe he is racist.
Oh, yeah,
just like
100%.
Samuel L. Jackson, just like Javier Bardem also recently. Rosalia, if anybody knows who that is. Justin GP says, do you think that they're trying to put Argentina through the mud because of the new president and how he's removing all the leftist crap? Well, he's not that new anymore.
Yeah.
But Justin GP says, you're welcome, Nat. Thank you.
There's actually
so I can talk about it.
There's actually a lot more far-right parties in Argentina now that are trying to push back against Milei.
To oust Milei as well.
Yeah.
But I do think Argentina was that prime example at the beginning when Milei first got in. And now, without the help of USAID, a lot of other countries in Latin America are suddenly reflourishing more towards the right and getting new presidents that are aligning essentially almost at 100% with Trump, except for Mexico, Brazil, and Nicaragua.
Milei is an example, a traditional example, I would say, of somebody that's seen as a far right who's actually extremely moderate and much like a Democrat was in the 90s. And Trump is an example of that as well. And people say, what, Trump? Yeah, most of Trump used to be a Democrat for most of his life. Most of the policies that he has now were actually just normal policies for Democrats to have back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Sean says they hate Argentina, they hate Bolivia, they hate Colombia now, they hate Venezuela, they personalize government to the country themselves, hence Trump is the USA, which is absurd.
Yeah, and they love Spain, I'll tell you that.
Pedro Sanchez, who's under investigation now, by the way. And by the way, sorry, I know nobody cares about soccer except me and Silverfeet, but by the way, did you all know that Spain is now under investigation by a Copenhagen Commission for fixing some of the games, and we'll see if that cup stays for much longer in Spain. Justin TV says, a new live cooking show with Nat and the girl. Oh, I like that. She would eat everything, but I like that.
Yeah.
She would eat the plates. Sean says, Bernie used to be pro Second Amendment. He called open borders Koch brothers plot.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what does happen. It's a lot of people in America don't realize how good the economy is doing in the United States, especially when you compare it to every single other economy in the world, especially when you directly pair the United States against China. Trump has massively increased the American economy while repressing the Chinese economy. Mm-hmm. I mean, people really, I hope, wake up in the United States and realize the economy is doing fairly well there.
And Philip Vespa says, the reason for the hit pieces against Argentina is that the media is trying to rally leftists against Milei. He is well prepared to fight against them. And what's even funnier is that within Argentina, because of all this hate they're receiving, number one, they're having a lot of more open debates between the far left, which they have a very deep far left there with the Kirchneristas and the Cucas and all of those, and the even further far right than many people would think. Now they're all rallying together to defend Argentina and the Argentinian flag and be proud of being Argentinian. So in a way, people are kind of helping Argentina come together to defend itself against the rest of the world. I support them.
Well, I will also say if J.D. Vance gets into office with his former connections and things like that, Argentina is absolutely going to flourish. There's massive investments. It has been earmarked as the place in South America. They kind of want to make the U.S. hub, not just for tech, but a lot of other things as well. Peter Thiel is getting citizenship down there. A lot of other high-profile Americans are now getting dual citizenship in Argentina, putting in a lot of money into Argentina with the infrastructure.
Well, they're calling it what are they calling it? What's this thing that tells ships where not to crash? what are those called?
Oh, the beacon?
Yeah, the beacon of America. That's what
Yeah.
well, that's what they call themselves. They are a little bit arrogant still. But I mean, what's wrong with being, that's what I was telling a family member earlier today. What's wrong with being prideful and proud of your country and the things that you've achieved? And yeah, admitting that you have a lot of issues as well.
Yeah, the issue here is going to be the left is starting to wake up, and there's two major countries, both Mexico and Canada, who have pulled it off and really realized to make it big, or they're starting to pull it off, how they're going to make a big tent party and how you do it. It's the same formula every time. You start with the far left, you then go to intersectionality. So you get still the radicals, but you get a broader base of radicals. Then you embrace the flag and nationalism. This gets you the moderates of the left and a little bit on the right that are non-politically engaged. And then you go after the conservatives. Carney's going after the conservatives through the federalization of natural resources and elbows up against Trump. We're starting to see a lot of conservatives use that elbows up slogan in Canada. That's going to work against them because that's just bringing them more to the left and towards Carney. Sheinbaum in Mexico had used a very similar strategy. The way she's appealing to conservatives here, though, is a little bit different than Carney. She's doing it by cooperating with the United States. And that's to the non-politically engaged. It could possibly work. It's definitely building them a broader base than they had.
The people that understand what's actually going on,
Yeah,
yes,
but most people that vote don't understand. So that you don't need that.
I won't get into it. But Sean says, does that mean Bolsonaro is going to win Brazil elections without USAID? I don't think he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope he doesn't. But
Brazil is a very strange country, and they've really consolidated power under Lula, and the BRICS have earmarked Brazil as that stronghold. So I would be surprised if Lula doesn't retain power there. And it's a shame because I would love to see Brazil switch. I just don't think it's going to. There's too much invested in China, Russia, and Iran in Brazil.
So you think Lula is going to stay?
Yeah, 100%.
Bolsonaro.
Well, we're going to really see the power of the U.S. if Lula actually loses. Because he's consolidated everything in that country.
Of the non-USAID U.S.
Yeah.
Sean says, buoy. No, I was actually looking for lighthouse. And Justin GP says iceberg. No, lighthouse or beacon. You said beacon.
Well, the beacon is in the lighthouse. I was trying to look for lighthouse myself.
Yeah. But thank you so much for trying. We're heading over to our UMBLE. We do still have some stories over there. Apparently, it is still working. So join us over there. Before we head over there, don't forget to subscribe. There's a 30-second wait screen, and then we'll pop back up over there.
And that's
Let's get ready to